Chosen one, what sets you apart is not just that you will be the caretaker of a huge inheritance. You have discovered that the game that people spend their whole lives working for is actually rigged. Just like you said, you are more than just a player who quit his game. In this case, it's not a question of not submitting to the ridiculous rules of others. It's a question of seeing through them and finding all the shiny masks meaningless. Because the world they have designed is no longer a reward for you. The real reward is the truth you see. The documents you hold in your hands open the doors to a life's journey worth $10 billion. But you already see every light that tries to dazzle you, like a magician seeing the wires on stage. Like a spectator who turns his back on a concert, you don't want to hear the applause, only the voice of truth. And this shakes the theatrical universe built by the others, because when you refuse to participate, the whole play is meaningless. By subscribing to our channel, you ensure that God's light and knowledge continue to enter your life and provide you with the daily guidance and encouragement you need. The moment you tell them no thanks, there is comedy and anarchy at the same time. That's the precise reaction that happens when trust and honesty collide. You are chosen, and the only thing that can stop you is to give up your own truth. But this is where your real power lies. With your huge heritage and inner freedom, you have the courage to turn shiny fake worlds upside down. First of all, you expose the illusion of control. Because they see what others cannot see, the chosen ones break the illusion of control. The whole point of the game is to keep the players searching for something they can never really get their hands on. The majority of individuals live by unseen rules, believing that they must do certain things in order to succeed, to receive favors, or to gain power. The system is a well-planned trap based on fear, obedience, and the illusion that someone, somewhere, is in control. But the elected are aware of this deception. This is transparency, not rebellion for the sake of rebellion. They can see through the smoke and mirrors. They realize that those who write the so-called rules are just as flawed and lost as the others. The chosen realize that at the heart of all power systems, hierarchies, and games is the urge to exert control over others. Moreover, the system as a whole feels threatened when you stop playing. The fact that it is not noisy or theatrical is what makes other people so uncomfortable. The chosen ones don't enter the room and declare that they won't play. They just don't want to be involved. They quietly overturn the whole arrangement without doing anything. The purest form of power is this refusal. It is intolerable for those who have spent their whole lives clinging to the image of control. It is like trying to find the key while watching someone walk through walls. The clarity of the chosen one causes others to doubt not only the system, but themselves. And that's when the resentment starts. People are reluctant to admit that they have made meaningless investments. If this message resonates with you, I would really ask you to consider making a super thank donation of $50 or $100 to this channel. It is through your donations that we can continue to spread these divine gifts and teachings around the world. Instead of facing the facts, they would rather label you the problem. Because they realize the ultimate secret, that freedom is the only real power and no one can control it. The chosen ones don't follow the rules. Your Heavenly Father is opening the door of blessings for you, so enter 11 if these words are for you. Second, your aloofness is seen as arrogance. People mistakenly believe that your aloofness is a sign of arrogance. The reason it is so misinterpreted is its clarity. You don't distance yourself from other people because you believe you are superior. You are fed up and you step back. You have come to the conclusion that the constant chatter, drama, and desire for approval is not worth your time or effort. The problem is that most people find it impossible to imagine a future where they are not always seeking approval. Therefore, they see your decision to give up as a sign that you despise them. Your calm demeanor sounds judgmental to those still involved in the games. They feel vulnerable when you don't participate in their attention-seeking efforts or petty power struggles. Experience what it is really like to be chosen. You are not traveling alone on this journey. If you secretly believe that you are chosen, you are in the right place. By choosing to join, you can further your relationship with us, access exclusive information, and get the help you need on your spiritual journey. It's not just about joining a group, it's about gaining access to special insights that can change your life and help you get closer to your divine purpose. Make your decision now and join us on this journey. Claim your right to be one of the chosen ones. Sign up today. They start projecting their fears onto you and tell you that you must believe that they are inferior to them because they are secretly worried that they might be too. You are not trying to minimize anyone's feelings. This is because your presence reminds them of what they are avoiding. Detachment is not really about rejecting other people. It is all about self-defense. You have made a decision to stop spending time and effort on activities that do not benefit you. And many people are shaken by this choice. Why? Because it confronts them with their own decision. They start to question why they are still trapped if you can leave. But instead of thinking about it, they prefer to call you arrogant or distant. It is harder to admit that they are jealous of your independence. They cannot see the fortitude needed to maintain neutrality, to refuse temptation, not to justify themselves or to submit for the sake of others. People who have tied their identity to the approval of others are alarmed by your decision to choose peace over performance. This is not arrogance, it is freedom. But to imprisoned people, it looks like an attack. Number 3. The sound of broken illusions is their pain. People's resentment towards you is not just jealousy, it is sadness, even if they never own it. It is the sheer distress of knowing that they have built their entire lives on dubious foundations, spending money on games that were never real in the first place. You have rejected the structures they rely on to feel important, not them personally. And this has a deeper impact than any insult. Most individuals base their entire lives on 4 unspoken rules: following the crowd, climbing the ladder, and seeking approval. They tell themselves that as long as they follow the rules, they will eventually gain respect, authority, or a sense of self-worth. However, this illusion is shattered when you decide not to play. The norms they have so scrupulously adhered to now seem less solid. It's a frightening feeling when people start to doubt everything they put out there. Worst of all, they turn this realization into hostility because they can't understand it. They see you as a danger to them, not as someone who has made a different decision. Your inability to interact seems judgmental, as if you are forcing them to look in a mirror that reflects their innermost fears. They use this as a coping strategy to avoid the embarrassment of discovering that they have been chasing smoke. The problem is that you are not trying to destroy their reality. You are just ignoring it. However, the act of leaving the game resonates louder than any criticism, as it makes people wonder why they are still playing. It is inconceivable that those who identify their values with the rules would admit that the game might be useless. They leave the game not because you are wrong, but because deep down they think you might be right. If you want to express your faith in Jesus, press 22 because His presence brings a calmness to your soul. Fourth, you show their potential rather than their flaws. People are really uncomfortable with your presence because it reminds them of their unrealized potential, not because you point out their shortcomings. You are a real-life example of what is possible if they stop limiting themselves. This is a hard truth to face, especially after years of convincing oneself that one's own limitations are unchangeable. People are eager to appreciate someone who doesn't directly threaten their comfort level from afar. But when they encounter someone like you who fearlessly steps into their authority, they feel too close for comfort. You are just showing that greatness is a decision, and that is the problem. You are not showing your progress or rubbing it in their face. They hate that you are showing that these justifications are the barriers they have put up for themselves, that they cannot hold themselves back by blaming society or circumstances or somebody else. It's not that they don't realize their own potential. They are afraid of it. It will be necessary for them to give up their own justifications, to leave toxic situations and old behaviors in order to access that potential. And change is scary. It is easier to dismiss as threatening, arrogant, or excessive the unpleasant reality that they could be just as free, courageous, and competent if only they chose to act. This inner struggle is the source of their hostility and animosity towards you. Deep down they know they are entrenched, and watching you succeed makes them realize what they are giving up. Your success makes it hard to ignore, so your presence forces others to confront their own mediocrity. Not because you are voicing it. You represent the person they could be if they stopped playing small, and this is a fact they prefer not to face. You do not represent their shortcomings. Fifth, you redefine success as unauthorized. Winning is clearly defined by society as climbing the social ladder, making money, gaining recognition, and the admiration of others. Most individuals strive throughout their lives to check these boxes because they believe it will make them happy and fulfilled. However, you come along and completely destroy this story. You have reinvented what it means to win by rejecting the traditional norms of success. People are outraged by this because it undermines the whole foundation on which their lives are based. You have shown that success does not require titles, material money, or the approval of others. For you, winning can be independence, self-expression, peace of mind, or living your life as you see fit. It drives people crazy that you define success in this way without approval. You did not wait for approval or permission. You made a decision right now. And that choice is much more powerful than any award or title. People hate it because it makes them reevaluate what success means to them. If winning can be redefined, what can be said about all the sacrifices they have made? The restless nights, the compromises, and the endless running around to meet expectations. What was it all for, if it was based on a meaningless definition? Your inability to adapt puts not only their sense of achievement at risk, but their entire worldview. But the worst part is that they cannot imitate your success, because it is not imitable. What bothers them the most is that your path is yours and yours alone. They cannot limit you or imitate your freedom. Redefining winning is about choosing yourself, not rejecting other people. And by doing so, you remove the influence of the game on other players. That's why they hate the game so much. Sixth, you are a threat because you cannot be controlled. Only when individuals are willing to obey can manipulation succeed. Most individuals are easily manipulated because they want something outside of themselves, such as acceptance, prestige, belonging, or even just a sense of security. But what about you? You cannot control because you are completely out of the game. Take a step towards God's healing power today. To support our channel, click the Super Thank button on YouTube and make a donation of $50. Those who rely on your obedience to maintain their sense of authority are horrified by this. The truth is that so much in the world is cunningly controlled. People use guilt, fear, flattery, or duty to persuade others to act in their favor. Sometimes this is just the way people are conditioned to interact. Other times it is not malicious. But when you don't react to such strategies, everything becomes unbalanced. You have let go of unnecessary shame, so they cannot blame you. You have conquered your fears, so they cannot frighten you. And they cannot flatter you because you don't need the approval of others. For those who rely on it, this resistance to being controlled seems very dangerous. When their typical tools don't work on you, they are forced to face the fact that their power was never real and only exists because others allow it. By maintaining your independence, you reveal how fragile their influence is. But what really bothers them is that they don't understand why they cannot control you. Because they believe that everyone has a weakness or a lever that can be pushed. When you don't react in the way they expect, it looks like a personal failure. They don't realize that what gives you your power is your inner strength, not an outer armor they can break through. Your resistance to manipulation not only irritates them, it completely changes the rules of the game. If you don't obey, they lose their edge, their leverage, and ultimately their semblance of authority. This is the greatest danger for those who have made control their identity. Seventh, your silence is not loud, it is unreadable. People are not bothered by silence, but rather by the inability to understand silence. In a society where people are always looking for approval, criticism, and even confrontation, your silence becomes mysterious. It's not a poetic voice, it's rather incomprehensible, erratic, and completely out of their control. That's what really bothers them. Most people are used to reading others by their reactions. They use body language, speech, and even passive-aggressive cues to determine someone's thoughts or feelings. However, depriving them of anything makes them confront their own insecurities. They start projecting their worries, uncertainties, and assumptions into your silence and fill the void. You do not provide the solace of clarity through your silence. It is neither a tactic to control others nor an invitation for others to understand you. It is only an unwillingness to engage in an endless game of explanation and defense. But it looks like a power move to those driven by the need for approval or control. They are confused about their position with you, and this drives them crazy. Their inability to stop you makes them even angrier. Even if they argue, provoke, or demand answers, your silence does not change. They see an incomprehensible strength in such stability. It is simply a line they cannot cross. It is neither passive aggression nor indifference. Your silence becomes a mirror that reflects their own restlessness back to them. It forces them to accept that you are not the cause of their desire for approval or control. And in reality, even if people characterize you as cold or distant, your silence is an act of self-preservation. It's about saving your energy for what really matters, not withholding it. Eighth, their reasoning is intolerable because of your decisions. When you choose not to play the game, you become living proof that there is another way. Your presence is a direct challenge to the thinking of those who spend their lives saying, "This is the way things are," to explain their decisions. Their explanations cannot be tolerated because you live a different life and do not argue or preach. "I have to work at this job because it is safe," or "I have to behave this way because it is expected," are examples of excuses that most people cling to because they provide solace from the discomfort of change. However, when you ignore these same principles and succeed, these justifications are exposed for what they are: self-imposed constraints. Your decisions make you question not only the system but also the person. If they have the choice to choose freedom, honesty, or peace, what prevents them? Fear is often the solution, and no one wants to accept it. It is easier to resent you for being different than to face the fact that they are limiting themselves. The fact that your path is not predetermined only serves to anger them. It is something you have created and chosen. Because they can see the effort you have put into your success, they cannot call it luck or privilege, and this weakens their defenses. Their resentment is a reflection of their own dissatisfaction rather than something that is really aimed at you. In their hearts, they know they have other options, but they are not ready to deal with the agony of letting go. Instead of looking inward, they attack you for daring to live a different life. Even if your decisions do not override theirs, it seems that way to them. Even though you are not playing the game, you are winning in a way they cannot understand, and this makes them face the reality they have been running from all their lives. The cage they are in is not locked. They have just decided not to escape. Number 9. Your lack of boundaries scares them. Labels give the world a sense of control, which is why people are drawn to them. They need names, identities, roles, and classifications to neatly compartmentalize and make sense of others. This is just human nature, not necessarily malicious. However, when they see someone like you who doesn't fit into their preconceived notions, they get uneasy. They are not sure how to deal with you, and uncertainty soon gives way to fear. You cannot be controlled because you do not fit their standards. You are not trying to follow a formula, fit into a position, or conform to a stereotype. You are unashamedly versatile, flexible, and changeable. Because they cannot categorize you, people have a hard time in their thinking and can no longer control how they connect with you. They are further frightened by the fact that your resistance to being defined contradicts their own inflexible identity. They are forced to think about why they are confining themselves to a box if you can live outside of it. Thinking about what your uniqueness means is more important than how different you are. You are proof that they are not bound to their assigned roles, which is a reality that many people are not ready to face. They try to categorize you as arrogant, disobedient, or defiant. These are just attempts to turn you into something they can ignore and something they are familiar with. However, when none of this lasts, they are forced to face the uncomfortable reality that neither they nor you have any influence over how you see yourself. The illusion of simplicity is shattered by your very existence. You remind us that the world is chaotic, ever-changing and unpredictable, and has the ability to go beyond the labels that everyone has come to accept. This is the most frightening revelation for those who cling to boxes for safety. Number 10. Authenticity is challenged by your presence. Some people wear masks so well that they don't even realize they are wearing them. People pleasers, authority figures, victims, and saviors are the characters they spend their lives honing until they feel like their authentic selves. However, as soon as you walk in, these masks start to look oppressive. Your sincerity not only makes them uncomfortable, it exposes them. You don't follow the same rules, which is why you are so destructive. Performance, superficial roles, and posturing do not appeal to you. Those who rely on vanity feel vulnerable when you show up as yourself, unashamedly authentic and raw. Your presence reminds them of what they have given up: authenticity. This does not mean that you are trying to appeal to them. People feel liberated by your authenticity, and that makes them dislike you. It is based on reality and self-awareness, and not on acceptance or perception. For those who have lived their whole life in disguise, it is quite frustrating. They have put so much effort into maintaining their masks that it is an insult to them to watch you succeed without them. What hurts most, however, is the contrast. Being sincere draws attention to their own insincerity. They prefer not to accept the fact that their own egos, roles, and games are weak in the face of your authenticity. By characterizing you as intense, unrelatable, and even threatening, they project their discomfort onto you rather than admit it. The irony is that you are the focus of your honesty, not them. You have no intention of exposing anyone or proving anything. All you are doing is living in harmony with who you are. But this harmony seems to be an attack on those whose whole existence is based on falsity. Many of them would rather despise you than unmask themselves, which forces them to confront you. Number 11. You are interfering with the currency of validation. Validation serves as the currency that keeps most social interactions going. Like money, praise, attention, admiration, and approval are exchanged, and individuals use them to build relationships, gain power, and retain control. However, when you get involved, you upset the system as a whole. You deprive the system of its power because you don't seek approval. People are so used to using approval as leverage that it confuses them. They expect people to obey, to seek approval, and to react to it in a predictable way. However, you choose to give that up. Their approval, attention, or praise is not necessary for you, and their power to manipulate you crumbles without this need. What really bothers individuals is when your lack of interest in approval causes them to doubt their need for it. If you can live your life without it, why are people so dependent on acceptance? They realize how much of who they are depends on what other people think, which is both strange and humiliating. Your independence is often misinterpreted as arrogance, but it doesn't mean that you believe you are superior to others. It is the realization that your worth is not determined by the approval of others. They cannot understand how this realization makes you invincible. They are very frustrated that they cannot dominate you with criticism or impress you with praise. Refusing their control is only one aspect of your reluctance to play the approval game. Another is to liberate yourself. You have discovered inner fulfillment, which is a form of wealth that cannot be bought by any external approval. Your liberation seems to be a direct challenge to the lifestyle of people who are still caught in the cycle of seeking approval. Instead of growing for it, they hate you. Number 12. They hate the fact that you are not needy of them. The fact that one's value in life is not determined by need is among the hardest truths for individuals to embrace. You do not need their support, care, or approval to feel whole. The fact that you are whole on your own worries them because it makes them feel less important. Relationships, whether personal or professional, are often based on a subtle exchange of trust for most individuals. You need me for things too, and I need you to make me feel valued. This unspoken dynamic maintains balance, but when you enter the scene and stop depending on these things, everything gets turned upside down. People seek significance in your life because you are not cold or indifferent. You just don't base your worth on the approval of others. What they hate most is when your independence is sincere and not staged. You are not playing games to appear carefree or independent. You really are. And they cannot imitate or fake that kind of strength. This understanding hurts them because it makes them confront the ways in which they have tied their identity to being necessary. Their insecurity is the source of their resentment. They hate being reminded that they are not independent, not because you are independent. Your independence makes them realize how much of their value is based on connections and the praise of others. They don't like your independence because it contradicts the story they have created about their own importance, but rather because they appreciate it. But in reality, being independent means embracing who you are rather than rejecting other people. You are simply refusing to depend on someone for something that they cannot really provide for you. You are not pushing them away. People are not only uncomfortable with this kind of self-confidence, they are afraid of it. And out of fear, people misinterpret your independence as indifference, when in reality it is liberation. Number 13. When you don't interact, it looks like you are rejecting them. Whether it is personal manipulation, professional machinations, or social politics, people often confuse their identity with the games they play. These actions become a manifestation of their identity, or at least their perception of identity. When you leave such games and refuse to play, they don't see it as a neutral act. It feels very personal to them, as if their very existence is being denied. They cannot escape their duty, but you are not rejecting them. Because their identity is so closely tied to these relationships, leaving is like saying, "I don't value what you bring to the table," which is absolutely not true. All you are doing is choosing a different route. But such a perspective is not possible because of their defensive attitude. They feel invisible, unheard, and even ignored. Ironically, you are not trying to offend or devalue them. Your reluctance to participate is a boundary, not an attack. After realizing that the games were not worth your time and effort, you decided to focus on things consistent with your ideals. However, your rejection of the system seems like a rejection of the same games for someone whose self-worth is based on those games. They know in their hearts that the games are unfulfilling, which is even more painful for them. They have probably questioned the dynamics you left behind, but stayed in because it was safer than opening up to the unknown. When they see how successful you are outside the system, they question whether they are wasting their time. Because of what you stand for rather than who you are, a decision they have not made for themselves, this uneasiness soon turns to hostility. As a result of your reluctance to participate, they are forced to examine their own behavior and principles, and many find this introspection very unpleasant. So they transfer their bitterness to you, and instead of dealing with the underlying cause, they see your choice as a rejection. But in reality, it is about choosing yourself instead of rejecting others. Number 14. Their dissolution is your freedom. Freedom is a tremendous power that can be both exhilarating and frustrating. When you truly embody liberation, you are not only free from the roles, expectations, and games that bind others. You become a living example of what can be achieved. However, your independence does more than excite those who have centered their lives around self-imposed constraints. It also poses a challenge to what they hold on to. Most individuals are bound by invisible shackles that include internalized doubts, social expectations, the desire for acceptance, and the fear of being judged. These chains seem typical, even reassuring, as they provide a sense of order and regularity. However, when you emerge as someone who has achieved freedom, it makes them face the reality they have been running from. Your freedom is proof that they have decided to remain chained even if the shackles were never locked. Their carefully constructed universe is turned upside down by your freedom. They find it easier to accept that the system is inevitable, that freedom is unattainable, and that the law must be obeyed. But when you succeed despite all this, their story shatters. They begin to doubt everything, including their decisions, their beliefs, and the costs they have incurred to maintain the status quo. This unraveling causes horror as well as anguish. If they accept your release as true, they must accept their own part in keeping you bound. This is a frightening reality because it requires change and responsibility. Two things that many people will stop at nothing to achieve: Instead of facing this reality, they attack your independence as arrogance or disobedience. They fail to see that your freedom is a celebration of life, not a condemnation of them. You are simply refusing to be obstructed. You are not trying to destroy them. But your freedom seems to be an attack on others who are still bound. It exposes the weakness of their limitations and forces them to face the uncomfortable truth that they too are capable of being free, but only if they want to be. Being the chosen one really means that your presence overturns everyone's preconceptions about who they are, the world, and their role in it. The games fall apart in your presence. You don't choose to stop playing them. This is not because you are trying to subvert or destroy anything. Rather, it is because you have decided to live your life independent of the limitations that other people rely on for identity, purpose, and approval. However, this independence has a knock-on effect. People project their doubts, worries, and anxieties onto you because you confront them with truths they would rather ignore. Their unrealized potential, unspoken goals, and transformations they don't want to recognize are reflected in you. Some may quietly observe, inspired, but unsure how to follow your path, while others will despise you for it. What really makes you stand out is your steadfast sincerity. By not playing, you redefine victory. Being impervious to manipulation causes power hierarchies to collapse. Just being here removes excuses. You serve as proof that there is an alternative way of life, independent of approval, acceptance, or obedience. People who have based their identity on the very things you reject are appalled by this kind of freedom. However, this is about you, not them. Your path is a commitment to yourself, not a rebellion against other people. You are not here to challenge their tactics or to refute anyone. You are here to live fully, freely, and without regrets. For some, it may sow seeds of opportunity, while for others it may sow seeds of resentment, jealousy, or fear. Being the chosen one ultimately has nothing to do with perfection. It's all about having the courage to say no, to really live, to walk away, and not accept anything less than what truly speaks to your soul. Many will hate it, and not everyone will understand it. However, that is the price of freedom, and it is worth taking every step. If this video speaks to you, don't keep this message to yourself. Like this video to show your support for the truth. Let me know what you think by leaving a comment. Give this message to someone in need. Subscribe and enable alerts to make sure you never miss an upload. To support us, donate over $50 by clicking the Super Thank button below. Your faith is strong. You never waste your patience. The timing of divine justice is always perfect. Stay in touch, be resilient, and let's grow as a team.